real. A couple times. In person,
I put that one, I walked in the light.
takes a while. Which airplane, I mean, stairs especially.
Like,
Be surprised on.
I have something every night.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
I'd like to call a meeting to order at 6:30. If I could ask everyone to stand as able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you all for attending. If you have not signed in, there's a sign-in sheet here in the corner of the table, just so we have a record of who's here and who's not. So we're going to start with our Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting. And so first thing on the agenda is citizens' comments. Anybody have anything to comment about that is not on the agenda for the Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting? All right, I will accept a motion to open a hearing for findings of no significant impact for contracts 2 and 3 of the sewer project. So Tim is the motion, Arnie's the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, online we have Matt Bissell. Matt, can you take us through this hearing, please?
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a PowerPoint presentation. Let me know when you guys can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I did a similar presentation a few weeks ago for contract 1, but this presentation will be for the contract 2 and 3 of this sewer main project. I have a couple location maps here on the screen. Contract 2 is located on the north side of Flamstead Road where the existing sewer pump station is. It's a pump station replacement. Contract 3 is located along Depot Street from First Avenue all the way to the town office on Elm Street. So the purpose of this hearing, it's required in accordance with the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation notice of intent to issue a finding of no significant impact for these 2 contracts. Dufresne Group completed an environmental review of these 2 projects, and we'll go through some of those items that we reviewed. But first, a description of the 2 projects. Contract 2 is replacement of the existing sewer pump station with a new duplex sewage pump station and valve pit, an emergency generator, and some site grading and site piping, all contained within that town-owned parcel north of Flamstead. Contract 3 is gravity sewer main replacement on Depot Street, approximately 1,300 feet of it, including sewer main and sewer service connections. And there's also a jack and bore railroad crossing where a casing pipe will be installed under the railroad. Some of the environmental impacts we looked at during this review process included environmental justice, which would be sensitivity towards sensitive populations or affordability, and there was determined to be no impact there. Cultural, historic, and archaeological resources. We consulted with Harkin Archaeological Associates to complete a archaeological resource assessment, and they determined that the pump station site, portions of it were undisturbed and adjacent to the Williams River, and so there was a potential for pre-contact deposits. So they completed phase 1 shovel testing, which is just a series of test holes to look for deposits, and none were encountered. We looked at land use, but this project is contained in a public right-of-way, in a road right-of-way, or on town-owned land, so there's no land use effect. wetlands, floodplains, coastal zones. The only potential effect here was the pump station site is located within a floodplain. So Dufresne Group completed an hydraulic study to evaluate the impacts of site grading at this site, and it was determined that our site grading and grade changes would have a no rise impact on the flood elevation. And so a zoning permit was issued for this change. The rest of the projects include buried utilities, so there is no impact on floodplain. We looked at fish, wildlife, and endangered species. It was determined that this area is a habitat for the northern long-eared bat, and so to comply with federal regulation, tree cutting will need to be limited to dates between October 31st and April 15th. Drinking water and groundwater protection. The only constraint here was that this section in the town of Chester is registered as urban soils background area, which is a generic listing from the state of Vermont that there could be contaminated soils due to being in an urban center. This will be dealt with in following state regulation. Any excess soils from this area will be disposed of in an urban soil background area or will be disposed of as contaminated material. And then air quality, noise, and emissions is determined to be no impact. And that's it. The rest of the meeting, your presentation is open to public questions or comments.
So if anyone has any questions or comments, if you'd come up to the microphone and identify yourself and speak loud enough so we can all hear you, it'd be great. Anyone on the board have any questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Matt.
Yeah, sure.
About that soil that you said that any of the soil that's excess has to be disposed of, has to be taken somewhere else?
Yeah, so
they assume that it's polluted or that it's contaminated?
correct. Yeah, this area of Chester is designated as an urban soils background area. And so one way to dispose of it is just to keep it within an urban soils background area.
All right, thank you.
Yep, or you can test the material and prove that it's not contaminated, or dispose of it as it is contaminated.
It just seems like one of those regulations that pops up sometimes that it's hard to wrap my head around and make sense of it, but I guess that's the way it works.
It's fairly new, I think within the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, thanks, Matt.
So I have a question, could the fill be used, we're gonna do a parking area down at the Yosemite Firehouse? Could the fill be used there, or is that what happens, that is still within that area?
Couldn't quite hear that question.
Oh, come get closer to me.
Get closer, sorry. Deep voice doesn't carry that well. All right, so we have the Yosemite Firehouse, that's not that far from there, that eventually we'll do a parking lot in.
Yep.
That we can raise the grade, is that area still considered within the urban soils?
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at the map again. I believe it is. That's just north of the town office, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I believe it is, and if it is, then that the excess fill can remain within an urban soil area. So it's not expected that a lot of excess soils will be generated from these projects, but
Yep. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, one more. Sorry. All right.
Matt, what you had a question, a statement about the railroad where you have to bore underneath it and stuff?
yes,
Have all those permits and regulations been followed, that you already have permission for all that and stuff? Because I know when
yes.
town has operated with the railroad, it was real tough to get through all that stuff.
Yeah, it was a lengthy process, but this process started in December and last December, and we worked through it. We have all the permissions and permits that we need with the railroad.
All right, thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Peter made the motion. Tim is the second. Any discussion? All in favor of closing the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting.
So move.
So Tim and Arnie are arm wrestling over the motion in the second.
Pick one.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Period.
Okay, now we are opening the special select board meeting, and the reason this is special is because it's following the Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from select board meetings dated August 2025, a special select board meeting dated August 2025, and special select board meeting dated August 28, 2025. So I'll take those one at a time. Then make a motion to approve the select board meeting dated August 20, 2025.
So move.
So Tim has made the motion.
Nope, I can second.
Peter's the second. Any comments, changes, concerns?
So maybe this is just my reading comprehension, but on page 6, line 1 and 2. Sentence that says the league said if they remove complete and Ariana suggested replacing ensure with to work. They would agree with the policy.
So which line is
Excuse
that?
me,
again?
Tim, can you move closer to the mic, please?
Yes, sorry, would you like me to repeat myself?
Please.
Okay, so on page 6, lines 1 and 2. There's a sentence that says, Lee said if they remove complete, comma, and Ariana suggested replacing ensure with no work, comma, they would agree to the policy. I'm just not sure
Okay, so we were having that discussion about the word
about the
complete.
wording. So
And-
maybe putting quotation marks around
Complete
complete and to work.
and ensure. Because ensure was a word you wanted to remove.
Right. Then that would probably clarify it. When I first read that, I actually read it 3 times and it didn't like it. So. That's all I have.
Anyone else have any comments? All right, I will entertain a motion. We already motioned, so any other changes? All in favor of the meeting minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Excellent. Now, special select board meeting dated August 20, 2025. Anybody have any comments on that?
Is that date right?
Yes.
Yeah, QNet.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, it was before the regular meeting.
I'll move to approve the August 20 executive session minutes.
So Tim is the motion, Ariana's second. Any comments or concerns? All in favor of approving the minutes for the special select board meeting dated August 20, 2025, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent. And then last but not least, are the select board meeting minutes dated August 28, 2025, the special select board meeting.
No.
We don't have them. so
No,
we're not-
I meant to send this to you and I
Oh,
forgot.
okay.
We'll do that the next meeting.
I was wondering.
I actually just got them. I was thinking I would have them in time for tonight.
Okay.
I'll
so
add them to the next.
Strike that last comment.
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda are citizen comment. Does anyone have anything they'd like to address the board? Mr. Goodgood, come on up. Identify yourself and speak into the microphone, please.
Okay.
Paul Bigwood, the chairman and the board. I'd like to get an updated status again on the 2 issues that Jim Carroll was looking at pertaining to the roads in the snow shape area. The first one being the letter that I sent on February 5th of this year, requesting some information on the report that was put together that Jim Carroll used as a basis of his opinion. That's, I mentioned it several times now from several meetings. It really seems that we're getting to the point where the answer should be provided, in my opinion. So that's number one. The second one is the work that was done, and I reported to the board It was done sometime in, June, I believe. I don't know exactly when. But I have given the history of that to the board. Or in a March meeting, it was stated that the snowmobile club was going to do some work on the town highway. And it was stated that the town highway was 700 feet off from where it should be. And at a subsequent meeting, I requested the board to send a letter to the cabinet, Chester the Chester Snowmobile Club, not to do any work there. And the letter was not sent. In fact, at that meeting, I repeated myself 3 or 4 times. And I used the phrase not to change the facts on the ground. Well, lo and behold, the work was done, quite extensive amount of work was done. Changed the facts on the ground. And I'm at a loss. I mean, I kind of know a lot about highways and construction, and I know where my boundaries are, and I know where my neighbors' boundaries are. But I'm at a complete loss of where the town highway is. It's just, I don't know. So I need something from the board to tell me where the highway is, so I don't trespass on someone's property. I refuse to do that. And as a result of that, I can't get to my own property because I don't know how to access it. And then the other thing is the answers to my February 5th letter. Both of those things, I used the phrase log jam a couple of months ago. You know, the logs are piling up. It's really at a point where we have worked in good faith, I think. I've been patient, and let's just respond. You'll respond. I'll be able to then respond to the report that was put together that Jim based his opinion on. But right now, my hands are tied. So I'll just leave it at that. I really appreciate these documents and response from the town. I'm not asking for anything above and beyond what's needed. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
I have out to Jim following the last meeting. It was in preparation of the Thompson Road, so nothing got done other than the hearing that we had last week. And I believe he is still waiting on some additional information in order to issue that final opinion.
Okay, thank you.
I can reach out again.
Any other comments?
Julie, have we reached out to the snowmobile club on what happened?
I've
there?
met with them, like I reported at the last select board thing. I met with them. It was an error on their part. They thought they were on private property. They did not realize they were on town property. They have a landowner permission form from the landowner giving them permission to do that work. They did not. I have nothing to indicate that they're lying to me. I am taking them at their word that they did not realize they were on town property when they did the work that they did. We've had that discussion about you need to know where you're at. And I mean, beyond that, I don't.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is old business. So we have green improvements, volunteer day, depot sidewalk. Julie, you want to help us out with that?
Again, just a couple of things, just reminder, the demonstration project is up on the green. We scaled it down significantly, eliminating the bump outs across Route 11. But again, please, there's surveys, there's QR codes all over the place up on the green and on the website. So go on and complete the survey. It's going to be helpful with any decision making of anything being final. Reminder, the volunteer day that we're hosting is a volunteer recognition day, is planned for September 14th, 4 to 7. Please RSVP by September 8th to the ladies in the office. And then the Depot Street sidewalk, I have received written communication from all the state divisions and the rail. I've been given a draft right-of-way agreement finally for the sidewalk. It's been reviewed by our attorney. All revisions have been made. It is now out for signature. So every hope that I will have it soon. It's only taken 7 years, so hopefully I'll have it sometime this month. But we are also waiting for, additional funding. So, I'll let you know as soon as I find out on that, and then we'll have some conversations about the scope of the project and are we keeping it the same, and kind of have some conversation about that. That's it.
So what have you heard so far about the green?
I've heard very positive
Yeah.
comments. I think that the one thing that we're seeing is, where the bollards are up. We're not looking, the project will never be raised structures to that level, right? So one of the things that, that I'm looking at that would probably be presented is the area, between the, travel path, there's a white line between the travel path and the businesses. The area in that section, having it needs to be repaved, so having that repaved, painted brick and stamped, so it looks like it's a brick walkway. And then the areas where the bollards kind of come out, doing the same thing. So it's not raised, because we don't want to create issues with deliveries and trucks and plowing. So you can give the same feel with doing the same thing in those areas. So for a car, we're kind of programmed to, oh, a brick, that's a walkway, we don't drive there. But it's an area where trucks can expand, to make that turn if they need to. And the guys can plow right over it. So we may play with that a little bit, get some drawings to see what that would look like. And then we could match that with the sidewalks that cross Route 11. So it kind of connect it with the brick buildings that are on the green, and for the safety of crossing Route 11, instead of doing lights or signals or bump outs, it draws attention to the sidewalk itself, so.
I noticed the next day after all that was put out there, somebody moved all the bollards on that.
Right, I think it's one of the delivery trucks. When we were up setting it up, those bollards actually were a little bit different, and we watched the Pepsi truck come in, and it was like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work. So we moved it a little bit, plus we had an individual parking in a place that's not a parking space, so that made a difference. So, I think probably what we'll do is this will be repaving the entire green, changing how we stripe. The businesses, Metatrina all the way down, to the quilt shop. What was the old quilt shop? Actually striping parking places there and just really defining.
Yeah, that west end of the green, I could see you having to raise that just so, but you don't see it as a car and they're
Right.
talking about controlling and speeding in there.
Yeah.
That may need to be raised just to give them a little.
Yeah.
Little more.
We could do those 3D paintings where it looks like a pit or.
You only saw it, it's nothing out.
Saw a suggestion from somebody to put a speed bump across that end, and I thought, I don't think that's gonna work for plowing very well.
No.
That's the thing we have to remember, right? Like, we don't want to all of a sudden create winter maintenance as a nightmare.
Right.
So that becomes an issue. We need to make it feasible for everybody. And how can we do that? And what are some things that we can play with to give that visual impact while not, impeding?
We could give some of the
Operation.
merchants paintball guns.
There you go.
Go too fast.
There you go. There you go.
Strike that from the record.
But so far we're getting positive. I mean, I saw a couple wacky comments on Facebook, of course. We're not spending $200,000 on the mock-up, just to clarify that, because people actually seemed to think that. The mock-up was like 2,000. The grant is 200,000. That will do all the improvements on the green, to include electrifying, getting the electric on the green straightened out, the curbing around the green, the pathway, the Episcopal Church has granted an easement across their property.
That's great.
So there'll be a pathway to connect Cobley to the green, which will be great. So we're working on that. The grant pays for that. And then whatever improvements we decide for the flow of traffic. Yeah.
Anything else?
Julie, do we have a date yet on the tree planting for the rest of the
So-
trees?
Yes, I just heard from him, this evening. I think he said the week of the 15th, the week of September 15th, it would be sometime during that week. Just so people know, There will be a tree going on the west end of the green. It's very open there, no shade, so we've had some requests for a single tree down at that end. One across the street closer to the Baptist church. Up at the pinnacle, a lot of the new plantings will go up to the pinnacle. Shade trees to have next to the playground for moms with little ones. Shade tree near the skate park, again, moms with little ones on bikes, like to use that space and there's no shade. And then of course around the pickleball court, providing some shade and aesthetics, just kind of beautifying that up a little bit. So,
How many trees is that?
oh my gosh, we added,
10, 12?
I think we added another 11 or 12 more. And of course, that's all 100% grant funded, so. Yeah, it's great.
Yes, come on up and introduce yourself.
Penny Benelli. Since you said that you're going to be putting a new tree on the green on the 15th during that week, do the people who are coming in for the festival at the end of that week know that?
It's a very good point, Patty. Let me just make sure. We may have to move that planting.
We did actually talk about that when we were.
Yes,
meeting
we
with
did.
Everybody, and we did say it needed to
We
be after
did.
the 20th.
I will let
Good call,
Nick
Penny.
know that that's gonna have to be, thank you, Penny.
Thank
Good
you.
catch.
Welcome.
Any other comments on old business? Next is library trustee appointment. You should have gotten a letter from the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Whiting Library. And Donna, do you want to come on up and say anything, or do you just want us to talk ourselves? Come on up.
You gotta speak to the mic, Paul. Put lipstick on, but it's good.
Once on true Zoom calls, I'm really pale.
No, we had a resignation. Bill Bacon resigned, so the rest of the board talked to a few people and we asked Penny if she would be interested in coming in for the rest of Bill's term. And she agreed, so we are asking for permission.
Yeah, appointment until March, till the
Right.
next election.
Right, until, yeah, for the next election. And I figured if you had any questions, you could ask Penny.
Well, thank you. And so I will entertain a motion to accept Penny Benelli for replacement of Bill Dakin's unfinished term through the end of March or beginning of March, the next town meeting.
So moved.
So Ariana's made the motion. Do I have a second? Second. So Arnie's the second. Any discussion?
I just would like to add that I think Penny, you're gonna be a great addition to the library board. And I'm just amazed at how smooth this nomination goes and how it went. And maybe the other one should have went like that way, but thank you for still staying involved with the town and standing up like that. Thank you.
Here. Thank you for your perseverance.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Excellent. Thank you. Congratulations and thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Next on our agenda is a local options tax. So we had this come up before us at our last meeting, where it was kind of presented as something to consider, and we wanted a little time to digest it. And so now's our opportunity to talk some more about it in a warned meeting. So does anybody have anything they'd like to say relative to the local options tax? Or need a reminder of what it means?
Might be good to clarify what we're talking about, putting local options tax on.
The local option tax would be only for rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages associated with the meal. So not liquor sales at a store. The thought process when this first was presented to you a while ago was that any money raised, Preston has estimated somewhere around 60,000 a year as the estimate, would be used to fund the housing reserve fund, to be used by the Housing Commission in the establishment of housing in Chester. When the Housing Commission discussed the potential of this local option tax and presenting it, What made sense was only a 1% tax on rooms, meals. Because that taxes the short-term rentals as well, and it just kind of seemed to all fit. It also, it does not have a huge hit to locals. It's more, visitors to the area. Locals do go out to dinner, but obviously the greater impact there, the thought was that it would be visitors to
And that would take that 9% state tax to 10%.
10%.
And what's the current alcohol tax on served alcohol?
That,
6%?
that I'm not sure.
It's 10% now? Thank you. So that would take it to 11.
That would take it a moment.
And just to clarify, we keep talking about alcohol served with meals. It's any alcohol served for consumption on premise.
Correct. Not retail sales of alcohol.
So the other aspect of this that came out our last discussion was that the state would collect the taxes as part of their assessment of the rooms, meals, and alcohol tax, and then we would get that 1% back minus 25%. So the state would take their cut out of that.
I haven't heard from anybody to, having a conversation about this or asking me about it and stuff. I haven't brought it up either. But I guess the intention was to make sure that people are aware of this, that we are talking about it, so it doesn't become a surprise. But it doesn't seem like it's stirring anybody up enough to call me or text me or email me, but that's.
Well, I think keep talking about it, right? It's not like a once or twice conversation, it's keep talking about it. So that it gets to, we can get it to everybody and answer questions or thoughts that people may have.
And also for clarity, and we all understand this, but that will be up to the voters to approve in March.
Correct.
It'll be on the ballot. It's not up to this board to make that decision. Up to the board, up to the board, to put it on ballot.
That's a good point, because that's a whole different thing. It's not like we're making the decision to town.
All of this conversation was really just, and this came up last year when we were doing the town warning, is do you want to put it on now? But we wanted to have more, you guys wanted to have more conversation in the community, so that people would be prepared.
But what parts of this tax is our choice on what's gonna be on ballot. Like, we're not gonna
Correct.
get-
You
so
have to-
That's really, the breakdown that we have.
Right. You set the warning, so yeah.
Anybody have any concerns about it or in favor at this point, or any positive or negative discussion?
I haven't heard anything, Barney. I haven't heard any comments from anyone so far.
What's your opinion?
It seems like a good idea to me. At this point, at least to get it on the ballot and let the voters decide. Anything that will help us to create more housing in Chester within reason, I think is a good thing. That's the goal.
Anybody else? Well, the discussion for where the money goes, that's still open. I mean, partly, we have mentioned that we're gonna be heading in that direction and stuff, but that's
not
to be
decided.
determined also. But that is something that we determine as a board, but we should know where that money's gonna go before it goes before the voters, so they know exactly what the vote.
It needs to be in the
It'll
warning.
be on the warrant.
It needs to be in the warning.
And how it's
It'll be
spent.
in the article.
Where it goes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be in the article, because you need to designate where those funds are.
Right, yeah.
And you can change it, the voters can change that if you start with the housing trust fund and, all of a sudden, all the housing that Chester needs is built and you wanna, it'll be after all of us, but, the voters can change the use of those. funds.
And it, sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I'm curious about that. If we were to warn it and it was to be approved and voted in 5 years from now, could it go away? Is it
Sure.
this sort of thing where you could put it back on the warrant to say we want to negate our tax of some sort?
We have too much money, we don't need it.
Well, and that was exactly gonna be my question, is how do we make this go away? It's no surprise to anybody, my view of taxes is not one that I think we should add without serious consideration and make sure that we actually need it. And what happens when you know, we don't want it, or it gets too expensive, or somebody else comes in, as another board comes in, so, well, let's make it instead of 1%, 8%. What, you know, I'm just, we're kind of letting the camel's nose under the tent. And so I just want to make sure that we're thinking through all of the unintended consequences of a move like this. So I may be in the minority, don't really care, but at this point, I just want to make sure that we're thinking realistically about what this means for the taxpayer.
I think it's more than just the taxpayer, but also the business owner. So we may be a small town and we may say this is all about folks that are coming in, tourists and visitors. But I look forward to having a conversation with the business owners who are restaurateurs and hoteliers and find out how they feel about it. I don't know. They may instantly say it's awful, or they may say it's no, 0 to no impact, but I think it's worth going to them and finding out, because they're the ones who have to let them.
Do you want me to invite them to a future meeting?
Oh, I was just gonna use as an excuse to go out to dinner every night.
Welcome to do that as well.
But if we could do both.
Either way, I just think that's an important voice in this conversation, is the businesses that you have to collect that taxes and whether they feel it's a positive.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that the reason I am at this point supporting it is because, as discussed, it will be earmarked to help develop new housing in Chester. If it weren't for that, I would be much less so. And I also just want to say, Lee, I appreciate your it's your kind of your mantra is what are the unintended consequences and what don't we know? But the 1% is mandated by statute. So this board could never change that. It would take state statute to change, to increase that.
Yeah, and I was exaggerating, but yeah,
I know,
the
but
point is,
because this is public and it's.
yeah, and that's a good point. I guess the thought is that if we vote in a 1% tax on meals and alcohol and rooms, then, you know, what's the next 1% tax we're gonna add? So eventually it could balloon into more than just 1% and more than just money for the housing commission. I agree that we need to fund the housing commission. You know, that's an important part of the town that needs to be addressed, and we need to figure out some way of funding it. So is this the right way to do it? I don't know.
It's a mechanism that's in place and available to us.
Sure.
And I would point out, I think it's good to talk to business owners. You know, one of the complaints I have as a business owner, and I think is pretty common, is finding employees. The police department, the schools, everybody has that issue, and you can trace a lot of that back to the lack of housing. So ultimately, there should be win-win if it goes through, as we're discussing.
Anyone else?
Part of me sees all these answers or remedies we're trying to fix for housing for people that can't afford things. It's just a symptom of what's going on in this country with our middle class, with the burden that's put on people that can't afford to live anywhere. Never mind in this town, just about anywhere that's people live. They're struggling with their housing, they're struggling with their food needs, they're struggling with healthcare. And we're trying to address one small part of it, and rightfully so. We do what we can as a small town to address these things, but eventually we're going to have, as a country, try to address this issue in a larger sense to help people along all over this country, to help them step back up to the middle class like it was after in the 50s and 60s, 70s, almost up into the 80s before it started going the other way. When there was a strong middle class and they had health benefits and they had vacation and housing with one income. And here we are trying to figure out how to get people a roof over their heads in the richest country in the world. And we're struggling with that. And that's just a sign of our deterioration of some of the good things about this country. And I agree with it. I think we're heading in the right direction. We do what we can. But I just wanted to point out the larger issue that I see sometimes when things like this come up.
And not to poke the hornet's nest, but part of that is the tax burden that we all are under. So My
Well,
concern is,
yeah.
are we adding more taxes and is that gonna hurt us or help us? So I understand what you're saying, not necessarily agree with it, but that's discussion for another time.
No, it's just on. Well, the tax, like you said, I agree with you, the taxes are a burden. It's not the taxes, I think it's where the tax money goes. And
Okay.
where we spend it.
Yeah.
Because
and-
if it was distributed equally where it should go, I don't think we'd have any of these problems. But the tax burden goes to places where I feel that,
Yep.
there's a.
And that's why every couple of years we vote for somebody to
that's right.
represent us in the
Yeah.
state house, so. Anybody else have any questions on the board? Hold on a second. Ariana, Peter,
No, I'm good.
okay. Donna, come on up, introduce yourself.
Atkins, I just wanted to clarify, is this because we have a short-term rental? So this would be an additional tax that the short-term rentals would pay, which
Correct.
I have no problem with.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say,
Collect.
right.
You would
right,
collect from
exactly.
your rental.
Right,
Yes.
so like now every quarter I get on the state and I say, here's what we brought in.
Mhm.
They take the 9% tax and then they ask, oh, do you live in a town that also collects this? Which now I say no, and I have no problem. Because that's basically charged back to the people who rent the
Correct.
house.
Right.
So,
Correct.
but I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else in the audience like to address the issue? Mr. Lindsay, come on up. Give us your name and. ask your
Right,
question.
serial number.
Nice hat, Bill.
I'll take it off.
Thank you.
I get votes against this hat. Can't imagine why. This has been an interesting discussion. And as I read the agenda earlier in the week, I gave great thought to this discussion. I just heard some comments about why we have some of the problems. And some of the problems are the increasing taxes that go on our citizens, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. As I read the agenda, I also read down, I actually thought these items could be discussed together. That's my thought, not the board's thought. Withdrawal of Cypress mineral funds from the public funds. We had a lively discussion at the town meeting last year that we all needed housing. Well, I don't think there's a restaurant or any employer that doesn't understand the need for housing. And when I say this, we seem to go as a solution for our problems to add another tax. So I said to myself, that's not a solution. What could be a solution? Now, at the town meeting, I would say predominantly people were in favor of setting aside some money for housing. I think they realize the problems as the board does. I can't find a cook. I can't find a dishwasher. Other small businesses are having difficulty in finding people. But is the tax the solution? We are already sitting on money in Chester that could be designated by the board for a specific need. If we have a project for housing and we've identified it, we need seed money. Julie has addressed the need for seed money before to move the housing project forward. So as I looked at this and looked at some of the figures, Cypress Minerals Funds has about $223,000. That money could be designated or used by this board or assigned for some way to prevent or properly used for the whole town's benefit. My feeling is that look at that fund if you wish, and find an amount of money to seed money, the housing study. A specific amount the taxpayers already agreed you should go forward. So why raise the tax when you're sitting on the money? I just asked the board to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else? Any further discussion by the board?
I just, I appreciate the comments from everybody. I would like to keep the discussion open. I don't know, it needs to be on every agenda, but maybe once a month, know.
Absolutely.
First meeting of the month, so it's there, it's warned, and anybody who wants to come back to talk about it.
Excellent idea. All right. Next on the agenda is our class 4 road policy review. So you should have all received a draft document from the CCC relative to class 4 road, class 4 road policy or highway policy. And it's an opportunity for us to discuss this draft policy. Does anybody have any comments? Anybody want to introduce it?
Yeah, I don't mind,
And your name is, sir? Sorry.
Artie Janino. The Chester Conservation Committee took on this task, I believe about a half a year ago. Because of their interest in class 4 roads and especially the part where it relates to outdoor recreation and public access to these lands and stuff. And we thought that as a town, it would be good to have a policy specific to class 4 roads, evident by what's happened to property that Mr. Bidgood was speaking about and the work that was going on there. So there would be some kind of a document in place that addressed all these issues as far as usage, as far as availability, as far as working on them. The policy has some definitions in it. It has some ideas in it. It gets a little aspirational in the beginning with some of it, which was debated by, we had some landowners in the discussion also. And there was some discussion on what parts to include and what parts not to include. The big thing that came out of our meetings were the reasons for preserving our class 4 roads and making sure that they are open and provided for our public. And one of them was the growing outdoor recreation with popularity of like snowmobiling and skiing and walking and horseback riding. The class 4 roads provide an essential access to public lands, and they serve a lot of times as a link to different trails in different parts of the town. Another reason that came up was maintaining the historical and natural resources on these roads. They're threads of history. The class 4 roads represent historical routes winding through forests, farmlands, old homesteads, and connecting people to our past. Accessing natural beauty, they offer opportunities to explore natural wonders of waterfalls and scenic vistas. Transportation for land management, these roads also provide for essential activities like forest and agricultural management, so they're important for those reasons also. We talk about our community and housing and how they grow and stuff, and another issue that might come up in the future with class 4 roads, as you expand, it's much easier to upgrade a class 4 road as an access to an area for housing or to upgrade a road than it is to try to get the right of way to do that again and stuff. So now you have a access that's already in place. So it also helps with that kind of thing that happens in the future or is going to be happening soon. Another item that we have to talk about, that we did talk about was collaboration with responsible users. Efforts are underway to develop policies to protect natural and historic resources while representing landowners and allowing public access without destructive consequences. And that was the part where the landowners that were involved in the discussion came up and talked to us and stuff. And we have to make sure that no matter what we do, that we maintain the rights of the landowners that are abutting the property and not disturbing their peace and their quiet and following rules and regulations that make sense for everybody involved. The code of ethics that kind of went along with it was promoting responsible behavior through educational initiatives and advocating for adherence to a code of ethics, including checking road status and respecting private property is crucial for maintaining access. We don't want to start in a project or a trail or whatever and start out having, being combative with the neighbors that are there and stuff. So having a policy that's out there, I think it will help that too, knowing that what's allowed, what's not allowed. as we're doing this and as we go forward, we're always looking for community input. And that was part of the reason why we went to the CCC, and it's a group that's very concerned about items like this, outdoors, recreation, trails, and all the uses. So we had a pretty good perspective of all the different ways that it would affect things and stuff. And we came up with basically, it's part of a boilerplate policy with a few embellishments on it that we put in there on our own. And that's here for a presentation and for the input from the board or from the community on whether they're happy with it, we could tweak it, are we missing something, should we add something or whatever. So this is like a first read to get the information out there so people know what's happening and what's going to be coming forward with this document once it's put out there.
Excellent. Well, Arnie, I want to personally thank you for all the work you've put in. Reading through the document, it's well thought out, and had a couple of questions, but I appreciate all the work that you and the CCC have put into it.
There was a good group of people that helped do it.
Ariana, you have a comment, question?
This may be something where I need to go away and do my homework, but again, thank you for putting this together. It's very thorough. What I'm curious about is how much of it is reinforcing things that are already in the
State statute.
state statutes or whatever the rules and regulations are that already exist. How much of this is restating or reinforcing stuff that's already part of state statute? And how much of it is creating policy? So I think I'm just saying out loud, I want to do some homework about what the current statutes are about class 4, how much of that this is redundant and how much of it is the policy towards how we approach those roads. And it's not a challenge. I'm just curious about how much change we're talking about versus how much we're just stating for the public in this area what the rules already are.
Like when we went through it, I think a lot of it is based on state statute already. There's nothing in here because we're a Dillon state, or how does that work? We're only allowed to do on a local level what the state lets us to. So before this becomes policy, I'm sure the attorneys are going to want to look at it also and say, hey, you can't do that because we're not allowed to or whatever. So it kind of has to be based on that. There's a little bit of aspiration in this one where it's not really a policy. It's just making a statement, kind of not justifying, but encouraging why we're doing this. But yeah, basically it's supposed to be based on state statute. So
Yeah,
if we mess up, we have to make sure we catch
But
up.
if you read through it, they did a really good job of what naming it. They're calling out where it is a state.
That's what I comes through.
All that everywhere, each of them, they're. Which really, that's just, I mean, I think at this level, you have to reinforce it because everybody has their own vision of what class 4 roads are. And so, I only have really 2 comments that I would make of this, and, on the definition of trail,
We're already, Pete, on the.
I'm on the first page under 1 and 200 definitions. And you have trails shall be maintained public rights of way which are not highway. Are generally used for recreational purposes. The town has no obligation for maintenance, care, or safety. Because of what happened at Hundred, and we don't have any town trails, class 4 roads that were turned to town trails. We don't, but we adjoin. Springfield has them.
Yeah.
Grafton has them, Andover has them, Wyndham has them. So I would have a tendency that we have no obligation, but we can. You know, we should be able to maintain them at our discretion.
That issue that they had up at, what was it, Humbridge?
Yeah.
I believe that was settled by the legislature this year with a law that they passed because of a lawsuit that was happening. And I could be wrong, but I'd have to check again, where they said in state statute that the town has a right to maintain a trail. Because that was the big argument and it was going to court. But once they passed that law, they had a basis for everything to fall back on. And I think that's what happened. I'd have to check.
The court case hasn't made a Supreme Court.
No, but the law is now the law of the state, so it's gonna play a big influence on whatever decisions are gonna be made, because now they could turn around and say, well, it's a state law that we could do it, so what are you trying to fight here?
Okay, so then under 4, which is maintenance right of way and access, there is a best practices that the state has for any erosion control and things like that, and you can change the erosion control, you know, if there are. To have somebody work on a class 4 road and create an erosion problem should be part of what they're responsible for. So I would have that under, you get 4, B1, 2, and 3. I would make it a 4 that you're gonna be responsible for the, best practices. Environmental, but there's a word for that. It's the environmental best practice.
Responsible for adhering to.
Well, I have to, there's a specific. Because there's one for ag and there's one for construction, and I think there's a specific.
Is that a state thing?
Oh,
And it's a state thing.
follow.
Yeah.
Follow best practices for the maintenance or,
There's a term, you know, it's like how much open ground you have, you know. if you
yeah,
were to
yeah,
take
for
a-
runoff and the degree of slope and all that. I'll look it up. We'll try to find what that is.
Yeah, and those are my only 2 comments. I have. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Great.
Do you have anything? Oh, yeah.
No, I just wanna see where we're expanding beyond. what he said.
You know, what they brought up about all the other towns in the, around us that have the trail thing. I mean, we have that authority also to turn a class 4 road into trail. So if that ever does come up, then maybe a trail policy would also be in order, which should be a lot less than this is, because basically it is just a right of way through the woods, and how much you might want to maintain it or not is gonna be up to the town. But in some cases, even if it's just parts of the town, it might be a good idea, but that's a whole different discussion to have when it comes to the trail and class 4 road.
That would be subsequent to this.
I mean, the advantages of a class 4 road is that you could upgrade it pretty easy. I'm not sure if it's the same if you're at a trail level to try to change it into a class 4 road or a class 3 road. You still have the right of way, which means I guess you have access to it, but it might involve a lot more work, or a lot more regulation. I'm not sure what it
Yeah,
would.
the regulation is the classification.
Yeah.
And it's there, you can do it by petition.
Or the select board could do it, or they could do it by petition. I think those are the 2 ways that it could get done.
Tim, you got any?
Yeah,
Comments?
I think this is really good, but I appreciate it. Worked a lot on this since other members of the CCC, but I don't know, put a lot of discussion. I just, as usual, I have some wording and things that I'd like to address. Trails, definitions, I think it should be legal trails. Because any path through the woods could be a trail, right? And there's class 4 roads that have been redesignated legal trails, I believe.
Thanks.
And then the next paragraph about Penn roads, where it says, select board has unlocked stiles, gates, and bars. Should that be or bars? Because you wouldn't necessarily have to have all of those things, right?
And or.
I think just or, stiles, gates, or bars. And
You have to.
that would leave it up to, well, you could do all, but. You could do any or, but I just, it's the way it's written, it makes it sound like you have to have all of them.
I'll take a look, because that's under 19 BSA 301. I'm not sure if it's a direct quote or not. I don't remember.
That's just me.
Check it out.
And then on the next page under item 3, actually item 4. Is any person who wishes to perform or arrange for the repair, maintenance, improvement, restoration, or installation on a class 4 highway? Installation of what?
Where are you?
Number 4A.
4, so.
Oh, okay, I got
Could be a culvert. You're gonna do a water barn.
So that makes sense to you as a civil engineer, from civil engineering perspective. Okay, it's to me, I thought.
What was the question on the beginning? Yeah, I was still trying to get to where you were.
Restoration or installation.
Yeah, what is installation? That was my question.
What is the
What does that mean?
Okay, yeah.
So
yeah.
it basically is related to
Well, you
road
can say,
construction.
or you could say installation of drainage. That would knock it down.
Well, if that makes sense from a civil engineering standpoint, that word
Or a
stands
bridge,
by
you know,
itself,
or a
then
bridge.
I'm fine with it.
Well, that would be, bridge would be part of drainage.
I guess I would go back to BSA 1111 and see what that says.
See where it's,
'cause
yeah.
I had that same question, and what does installation mean in this particular instance? You know, what
Bridge.
It's called lemonade stand.
or a toll booth.
There you go. Only the town can do that.
At the pet road.
And then on B under 4, 3, E3, any other reasonable conditions as deemed necessary? I would kind of like appropriate as opposed to necessary. Necessary feels like someone could argue the point of whether something we wanted to do as a board or as a town was absolutely necessary.
I would add or appropriate there,
Necessary
or appropriate.
or appropriate. Okay, that works.
That gives us the option.
Noted.
I think this was just a question on 6D. Reclassification or discontinuance will be done according to the 19th BSA, blah, blah, blah. Decision to alter, reclassify, discontinue a class 4 highway. Actually, I'm not sure. I just highlighted reclassification. Now I'm not sure why I did that. I guess I was looking for definition.
Well, if I can jump in, Tim, because that was one of my questions, that whole change in classification. And it's the policy of the select board to discourage the reclassification or upgrading. And to me, that seems like we're boxing ourselves into not being, or making it more difficult to reclassify something if we want to. And it just, to your point that you made earlier, Arnie, it's like, well, we have the option of, upgrading this road from a class 4 to class 3 in order to better access either landlocked areas or, housing or logging or whatever it is. So to me, I have a question as to what the intent of that.
The discouragement.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I hear you. Policy of select board, that's more of a policy statement, aspiration. than
Right.
a Policy.
yeah.
We don't want anybody to reclassify any. I don't know,
Right,
is that true?
and that's the thing is if we're stating this in our policy,
Yeah, and it gives us
what's
some
the
weight.
process for either negating or ignoring the policy and what's the point then? That's what we're.
It's
Thank-
weird because it says that and then the next sentence says, however,
Right.
which is a way out.
Exactly,
It's like, well,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah. So I guess that would, I'd like to spend a little bit more time discussing
I'll look it
that,
up.
what the philosophy of the select board is relative to classifying.
Which it might be in that 19 VSA 708, maybe
Right.
a little hint about what goes on.
Right.
in it. Because it only talks about the select board doing it, but there is a process where I forget if it's 5 or 10% of the voters who put a petition.
That's what 708 is. That's what
That's-
1970.
Is that what that is?
It's the process for that.
But they only mention the select board
Yeah.
in this part itself. And probably should say or select board or a petition of the voters or whatever the wording would be.
Yeah, I think a little more clarification would be helpful.
All right.
Tim, do you have anything?
No,
else?
that was the last one I had. Thanks for remembering what I forgot.
I had a couple other things. I noticed, under, on page 2A, we talked about the road foreman. And then later on, under 4BII. So the next page,
2A, it's a, oh, 2. Oh, that's different.
yeah, so up here, we talked about the road foreman under A right here.
Okay.
And then down here, we're talking about the road commissioner or highway person.
Want to keep it all consistent.
Well, it just was confusing to me whether it's the same person or not, so.
Well, the road foreman is Kirby. The road commissioner is actually me.
Okay, so do we need to differentiate between those two positions?
I would, because especially in A, you're saying road foreman in conjunction with the town manager.
Okay,
And then supervision by the road commissioner or highway foreperson.
okay,
No, I'm all good.
so are those those are
Yeah.
But
defined
just
title.
clarify that
Let's
a little
clarify
better.
that. I think we need to.
Both those sections.
I think in the document, we referred to the same two people, two different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
So
be
just to-
clear about which one you need, be consistent. Yeah.
Or maybe we add those terms to the definition.
I think foreman and foreperson are the same. They're just being correct with.
It's the
them.
road commissioner.
It's the road commissioner is the
Road
one that's
Commissioner.
and town manager.
Could be different.
correct.
They currently are the same, but they.
It could be different.
So we need to be specific.
And then on that same page under part B. Right,
Go ahead.
under the town shall not provide any winter maintenance, blah, blah, the fourth, fifth line down where it says, plowing by private parties shall only be allowed with an advance permit agreed to by the select board. So is that really approved by, or what is that term trying to?
And should it be selected? Maybe could it just?
It's
be
usually the road
curb?
foreman. It's usually the
Yeah.
road foreman.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
can make
Yeah.
a decision.
So I-
And if
I-
he needs our help, sure, but
Yeah, but I think either as Ariana said, issued by or approved by or agreed to, just to clarify that.
Well, if it's a permanent, it would be issued.
Right.
And he issues access permits, he issues all of that, so it makes sense that he would issue.
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that feels like that
Yeah.
should be
The road.
the road fund.
Is that something that we could do as a board?
We want to.
Well, I don't know. I'm just wondering whether we hand that over to the town foreman, the road foreman
I think it's already.
automatically.
Yeah, he issues the permits for people to do things on roads already.
And then you are where a person can appeal.
appeal to
Right.
the
Okay.
select board if they're not
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
with the decision.
That's-
That
Okay.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
Or the four person,
Oh, person.
Yeah, okay.
and I vote the four person.
So we write this quick.
And that was really all I had. I mean, like, again, I appreciate you putting this together and bringing it to us for consideration.
All the board can go back on the board.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back just for a minute, the Kent Road gate. And
You
one
want
of the
them,
things historically that has always been there, I mean, you read it all the time, is that when there's a Kent Road, there's a gate with good interest. And then the other thing that comes out there all the time is because when you come up into a winter, the gates will be open from November 1st to April 1st. Because you don't want to go to a gate, and have to shovel it out. If you're trying to go up a road and it snows and the gate's frozen in, then the gate is pretty much locked. That's in, that just turns up in the road.
Good point.
If we're quoting the Pent Road definition, we should include the whole thing that has those.
Oh, no, this is usually the road, so it's like.
Right, but should we take it from the road books and include it here, or is it included by virtue of its reference? Sorry to interrupt.
so Peter, you on the main page under Pent Road definitions that you're talking?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you wanted to say something about the
No,
hinges?
This is the thought that we have to think about. I mean, here we're saying, I mean, think how easy it is to move a set of box. Not the thing, and so if you get, when I'm reading through the Penn Road, you know, it's a road somewhere and they're gonna make it a Penn Road. It's always big print, it's gonna be gate on good hinges, it's gonna be open November 1st, you know, and you can close it again April 1st.
So that would go under section 7. Highway closure.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
it's what you did, I don't think you should, you know, you should think about it first. I don't think it's something that we have to be tonight, but I would give that some thought.
I guess I'd like to see what the 19 VSA says about
Yeah.
that, the references that are here.
I've got the document on my other pile at home about all the statutes that relate to this, and it might have even come out in one of the previous
Yeah.
packets that were given out in the beginning when there was quite a bit of
That's
stuff.
come right up online.
Yeah, you can search for my statutes online, right?
Mhm.
So interesting.
And I guess if we're still doing this, it just triggers in that same section. So on the second to last page, number 7. Where it says the select board may grant permission to an adjoining landowner to close pent roads. Is that an activity that we should be looking at the road four-person board? Or should that be select board? And I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I do think we need to be consistent. If permits are being given by the road four-person and then we're where they get elevated to, then let's be consistent with that. If this is not if this is different than a permit, then I just need to understand that.
And that's a good point.
What does enclosed Bent Road mean? Does that mean actually close the road?
That road is closed by the Penn gates, but they're not allowed to be blocked.
Okay,
So,
so unless they get permission to do so.
Not lawful.
now,
Well,
you
what this
can't,
says-
you can't lock. a
Can't
Penn
ever
gate.
lock.
Is
So
that
what does enclosed Bent Road then? To close the gate?
No, they keep the animals in.
yeah,
So if you have a pent gate on something, your road goes through it, not everybody, there's only the rich people that build stone walls on both sides of the road. You usually went through somebody's patio, to the other side of the patio, there's gonna be a pent road gate, the pent road gate. Will either be, it's interesting because it can be maintained by the owner or it's on a property line, but I've seen pent road gates that are maintained by the owner. It's not one of the people who own a pent road gate, but one of the people who accesses it all the time. So it's like he and the landowner are responsible for the gate. Right, it's true, but I'm answering what everything flows bent road.
Well, that's the only place where it's mentioned. The definition's on the first page, but then it talks about the Pent Road, like you said, under 7 about what is open or closed.
Right.
In open and winter.
And even that's if they're plowing, if they're not plowing. Wow.
Well, if they're
Yeah,
not,
if you're not plowing, then you're cross-country skiing, I come up on my sleigh.
True,
Then
yeah,
it's closed. I can't.
Can't get it open.
yeah, okay. So it makes a difference no matter when it is.
And that's where.
Yeah.
Provide
Locked out.
access.
Well, it limits access for sure, yeah. I only know of one Pent Road, and I'm not sure what, I don't know if you know of any more, Peter. I know there's one off at the end of Ingram Hill.
There's, a lot.
That's not
I
legal,
mean, they
isn't it?
just, they just, as the farm stops.
No.
They're still on the books. But nobody has animals, so nobody's doing anything.
Interesting.
any other thoughts or comments on this? Anyone in the audience? Yes, Mr. Bigwood, come on up and. Sure.
All bit good. I'm on the CCC and I participated in the discussions for the past couple of months on class road policy. I appreciate Ani and what he said, very good comments for the justification of this policy. That was very good. These here were done this morning and prior to the discussion I just heard, and some things I'll disagree with. But I'd like to go through these items. Which should just take a minute or two. The second paragraph, there's a defined term, class 4 highway, not class 4 town highway. So throughout here, I've just used the term class 4 highway because that's the defined term. That's the top one. Trails. Trails is here in black, and I capitalized town because town is a capitalized term. Then I fixed up the reference to 19 VSA 310. However, nowhere else in this policy is the word trail used. It's my recommendation that you don't even have trails in this. This is a class 4 road policy. There are no trails in town. If there were to be trails in the future, my recommendation would be you would then create a trails policy. There's no sense to find trails in here because nowhere else in the body of a policy are trails, identified. Pent Road at the bottom of page 1, again, here in the black text. I corrected the reference to 19 VSA 301 by, the period and section sign. At the top of page 2, however, I actually went to 19 VSA 301 and I copied in the brackets generally for, we all know what the brackets are used for later, just for discussion purposes. If it's inside a bracket, it's, let's consider it. But that consideration within the brackets is the actual text from 19 VSA 301.
So Paul, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Does that include the word town in there on the highway?
Yes, that's an exact quote.
Okay, so you taking it out earlier,
Well, I took it out early because it's class 4 highway.
okay, okay,
So I think I'm consistent.
yeah, no, I
Okay.
just, I thank you for the clarification.
I want to, of course, I did this earlier. I just heard the discussion. I want to disagree with what Peter mentioned about pent roads being open in wintertime. Not all pent roads have that qualification. Each road is unique, whether this is directly related or not. In real estate, location, location, location. Every piece of property is different. And what is applicable and appropriate for one highway over here, for whatever reason, topography, settlement, has no really great relationship to a piece of property over here. And each class 4 highway should be looked at independently, separately, and judiciously. And I know in the case in my neighborhood, I'm thinking of 3 pent roads right now. 2 of them, in fact, it might be 4. 3 of the 4 have no seasonal closure. Only one of them has a seasonal closure. So I think that's totally inappropriate to not allow the landowner to either gate, bar, or stile. And in fact, stile is actually a barrier. And that's when a person can walk through, but not animals. So it would go against the logic of the reasonable management of someone's property to all of a sudden deny that person the statutory right to protect his property.
Paul, I understand that, what you're saying about a gate like that.
Yeah.
And it should be just the landowner's thing. But no matter what the story is with that gate, it can't be locked. So it still has to be able to be open. Correct?
Okay, well, the style.
Yeah, I know that was a little different.
That one's a little
because
different.
Yeah,
Right,
because
right.
it was
But you're right.
specific for animals.
You're right. You cannot impede
Yeah.
travel with a locked gate or locked bars. But there are cases where, at the end of a town road, the property owner puts a bar or a gate and, that prevents travel beyond the end of the road.
But it's not supposed to.
No,
Because the impression that the travel is not allowed past that road, but it's not legal to not allow it.
Well, if the road ends though, you can put a gate at the end of the road.
It's not at the end though. It's still a class 4 road on the other side of that gate.
Well,
correct.
what he's saying is
talking-
that there is no road.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
If it's
end of the
at
town
the end
highway.
Oh, at the
Right,
end of a
right.
town road, then gate to the
Yeah,
private
yeah,
property.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
On motor vehicle, vehicle was a defined term, but when you go to the statute, it's actually motor vehicle. And then just to be consistent, have the right references, I would recommend putting in motor vehicle. And then my note off to the right says to delete that link. There's many references in here to the statute. This is the only one that has a link, to a specific statute. And I found it confusing. Why have one link? Either have them all or have none. And I don't think, because we're defining the statute at the end of the, issue. There's no reason for a digital link because you have the reference there.
It's hard to click on paper.
That is true. On motor vehicle, I put the red in there for motor vehicle, but then I also went to the statute and I copied and pasted it right in. I just wanted to have the right, term. The language is identical, but
But you added the
I
statute.
added in there just for, okay. So maintenance by the town, the next one. You talked earlier about installation. What does that mean? Well, I kind of struggled with that too. So I fixed that sentence to say, I deleted or. And it kept in restoration or installation. And what are we talking about? Well, I introduced, class 4 highway. and this is another big thing there's been discussion here earlier about the road foreman and the town manager.
The road commissioner.
And later the road commissioner. But I understand that the oversight and management is the duty and responsibility is the language from the statute. The duty and responsibility of the over highways is the select boards. And I believe it's non-delegable. Now, I haven't done any legal research on that, but the way I read the statute, I think that is held within the board's power domain, and that can't be delegated. That's something that we might want to further look on, because you mentioned that.
We have looked into that. So
Yeah,
this
okay.
came up during Longo, during the issue we'd had with Longo.
Okay.
And Jim Carroll's opinion is, yes, the select board does have the
Okay.
authority to delegate. Now, we
They
were
have
not
the
talking
authority to
about
delegate.
this specific
Right,
issue, so
right.
we should go back to you.
Yes.
But
They have,
but you do have the ability to delegate to your road foreman the right to issue permits, and those types of things. So we will have Jim look at this in the context and see
Legality.
how much can you delegate? What specifically can you delegate? But we
Ella?
can delegate certain things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Under B, I fixed a reference to class 4 highway where it's a defined term. And then C, the automatic indexing, I put a C in there. Under 4, I fixed the right of way, it's a defined term, right of way permit. And at the bottom, policy or permits. C on page 3. This is probably where I put the most thought in that, and that is you can't have anybody going and working on these roads. Road construction is a hazardous activity, fraught with peril and danger. Many people get injured and die with road work, heavy equipment, uneven land and trying to do things. You really should have a contractor out there. Well, in any event, on the second line of C, I put in class 4 highway again to be the defined term. And then I put on any approaching or intersecting highway. I've looked at the map of Chester with all the class 4 town highways. And a lot of times there's a class 3 road and then it transitions into a class 4. Well, if you're going to go work on the class 4 section, maybe it's a class, it could be any class and then class 4. And then it might intersect with another road. Well, if the men go up there to men and women go up there to work, that means they have to access it with heavy equipment, and they could be damaging, the approach to their work zone. I know in construction that's a big thing. Is you have to have, proper access, and if you allow work in a certain defined area, sometimes the damage can happen outside of the area. So you have to be cognizant of the fact of, what's the guy says he wants to work here. Yeah, but okay, well, let's look at, come back a little bit and look at the overall picture. Okay, then it says that all requirements for signage, work safety, public safety required by law were reasonable prudence. And I introduced and required general liability, workers' compensation, and vehicle insurance. Again, road work is fraught with perils that, there's too much going on in a work zone. Unsupervised, or, if it's not a truly licensed contractor who's used to doing all this work, you just have too many men walking around, and accidents can happen. So having insurance working on the road is essential. That's a non-waiverable, in my opinion. And then it goes on to say, the applicant also agrees that the applicant and the applicant's agents shall not hold the town responsible. And in here, I kind of just tried to make the words consistent, but I introduced death. Working on a road, you can have loss, okay, something happens to the piece of equipment, damage, okay, something happens to another culvert, you can replace those things. Injury, well, the guy breaks his leg, okay, he's gonna be okay. But what about death? That's not listed here, and put that in there because this is the indemnity provision. And we want to be crystal clear that if someone's out there working on a road, they have to indemnify the town for everything, not just a loss or a damage. A tire gets flat, a guy breaks his leg. But the worst case scenario, the town should be wanting to be indemnified for that also.
That's the lawyer review.
It is. And 5, under B, prohibition or restriction of uses. I made that plural because it's going to be more than one use possibly on the road. Or you might allow use A on this road and use B on this road. So it's really, this policy has to address not just a use, but multiple uses. And then I said, and including motorized vehicles, because so far, at least it kind of came across that the policy is addressing motorized vehicle use, but it didn't really address any other type of use, or at least in my reading and how I recall it now, but that's why I put that in there. And then this next paragraph is for an additional permit, that if you do have to have heavy equipment, the way I read it, if you do have to have heavy equipment up there, then that's another special permit that would have to be provided. And then in order to get the permit, someone would say, okay, you're gonna bring heavy equipment in, how are you gonna access it? Who's the licensed operator? And all those other things. And then E, granting permission to pent a class 4 highway. You know, previously it said town highway again, so I used the defined term. And then I added F, send permission. Okay, everything's gone well, the group or person has gotten permission to do use A, but over time, it's proven not to be appropriate. And so you want to have the ability that, hey, just because you have it, you're not grandfathered in, you can be withdrawn. 6, change of classification. I just fixed a couple of defined terms. B, the same thing. I'll just say it one more time. Here again, I'm noticing the word select board. And I'd like to see, have Jim weigh in on it. I'd like to, have someone say, oh yeah, the select board can delegate everything that's delegated in this policy. That's it.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks. You'll probably be involved in going all over this all over again anyways.
Any other comments on the class 4 road policy review?
Yeah.
Come on up, Mr. Sursu, introduce yourself and.
My dad's.
Can you hear me, Susan? Maybe not.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Believe. Yeah. Alrighty, so this is interesting. I wish I were prepared for this. My thoughts have been scattered. I have an awful lot on my mind about this. However, I'm going to keep it down to a dull roar so that we're not sitting here all night. My story is very simple. The first thing I gotta say is it's kind of nice when you're not on the select board and you don't have to worry about the whole town. I'm here as an individual and I'm here to represent only my interests. So know that what I'm saying is about me, I'm not worried about the grand scheme of everything. My story is that I live at the end of Surso Road up in Smokeshire. I'm the second generation on that farm. I have a class 4 road immediately in front of my house, immediately being probably about 50 feet. I live in a 220+ year old house. The class 4 road is below the level of the foundation. It's behind a retaining wall on the downhill side of the house. That retaining wall is not in good shape. So therefore, I'm worried about that shifting in the old brick house following it. About 350 feet. The road is actually long. It goes up into Bailey Hill Road, up where Mr. Biggood's house is, if that means anything to you. Only about the first 350 feet of it is in the town of Chester, and then it comes and becomes Cavendish Road. The town of Chester side is not hugely well maintained, but it is certainly okay. The Cavendish side is very well maintained and has been maintained by my family at their own expense for 60 plus years. A lot of my attitude is formed by the fact that I have lived in that house since 1959 when I was born. I don't really remember that. But that class 4 road has been on our minds and my family minds for a very long time, and we have an attitude, I'm sorry to say. So just that's a background so you can figure out where I'm coming from. I understand the need for a policy, I guess. What I do know, Ariana, is that class 4 roads are heavily regulated by statute. And that I hear you guys adjusting and shifting language and doing stuff. You're really gonna have to get somebody to reconcile all that with official statutory language. Class 4 roads or roads in general are a great place to get into trouble with. There have been select boards in the state of Vermont who have made decisions and taken action and then ended up on the wrong side of a suit. So please be careful. So as I look at this policy now, I'm on under purpose, the second paragraph. And we talk about class 4 highways. This may be the aspirational thing that you talked about, Arnie. They may also provide important access to public lands. They lay the foundation for multi-purpose greenways. And as the state becomes more developed, these rights of ways are ever more valuable. And I get that, yeah. But if you remember back to the zoning regulations, I certainly spoke heavily about the need to maintain large space. I didn't want a lot of people in there. My attitude still hasn't changed. One of my biggest fears that I spoke about back then is for some corporate interest with deep pockets and no respect to come in here and say, hey, I got a class 4 road and look what I can do. And I can get to where I need to go at the cost of building it up. So not only are we providing access and trailage, but we're providing a development and a way for people to profit from our stuff without any benefit necessarily to us, except we get some housing, I suppose. So that's a little problematic to me. And you're just gonna have to bear with me while I look at all my scattered notes. It's horrible. The second thing I note in here is that there are numerous statements that the town will not do maintenance. There's no summer maintenance, there's no winter maintenance, yet you want the use of the road. So which is it? You want to use it and not maintain it? That doesn't seem right to me, especially if you're putting vehicular traffic on it. It's going to get torn up, and yet that's okay. So the landowner living next to it or who has to use it to access his internal part of the property is not protected whatsoever. And that's a problem. So I would, here we go being random again. So yeah, I don't like paragraph 2. Also speaking to the same place wherever I can find it, the aspirational thing about it is the policy of the select board to discourage reclassification. Yeah, I don't think you guys want to make a policy statement like that. I certainly wouldn't recommend it. Statute has enough to cover it. You guys don't need to say whether the board at this time likes classification or not. Okay, so just bear with me. Another thing I notice in here is this policy seems to be a little bit heavy on what people can do. Any person who wishes to perform or arrange for repair, maintenance, improvement can do so. It doesn't have to be me. It could be anybody. It could be the CCC coming up there and saying, we want to open this road up and just have at it. Yeah, I get that that can be done. Unfortunately, this to me seems awful authoritarian in style. Within this document, other than what might be within the statutes that are called out, I don't see any protections for the landowners or anything. I realize that we want to be respectful of landowners, but I'm not necessarily seeing it in writing within the policy. Okay, so I'd like to see that addressed if at all possible. Okay, let me keep dancing along here. This is 60 years of stuff that you're catching right here.
We're catching.
The other thing is class 4 roads, as you open them up and you make them accessible to vehicular traffic. I remember when I was a small miscreant with a vehicle, and it was a popular thing to grab the case of beer and your friends and go out into the woods and find that class 4 road and go have a fire and a party. Are we opening ourselves up to that? Who's going to enforce it? When I have a problem on the Cavendish portion of my property, who am I going to call? Cavendish isn't going to want to deal with it anymore. They're going to want to fix the road that has been inadvertently open to let people in there. So I guess I'm not going to go hugely far. I would like to see a lot more said about homeowners and the respect for the homeowners. And I realize that we don't really have, I mean, if somebody wants to come up there and open up the class 4 and they go through the statutory process and get their permit, there's nothing I'm going to do about it. But it sure is going to make my life really miserable. I'm going to suffer a loss of economy by the simple fact that who's going to maintain the road? It does nothing for me to open up these roads. I don't mind people being on the roads. If I had a policy, I would have a policy of hooves, paws, and boots. I don't want to see vehicles up there. It's not going to do anything for me. It's just going to tear the place up. People are welcome to go up in there. And they just have to walk, and that's fine, or ski, or whatever the appropriate way is. The other thing is the road is historic up there. The Bailey Hill Trail that I live on was the original road that went up to Cavendish. And before Proctorsville Gulf was built, Bailey Hill Trail was it. And then as Proctorsville Gulf was being built, that was a toll road to pay for the build of the road. And everyone who didn't want to pay the dime to climb up the Gulf came up past my house. Smokeshare was heavily populated. I got foundation, I got some artifacts, I got all sorts of stuff. People are welcome to look. I have no problem with sharing. However, I do have a problem with destruction, if that's not too hard a term. And I got to tell you, all the time up in Smokeshare, I would hear these large crowds of motorcycles driving up through there. They have tour groups. It's all on the maps. Endless thundering vehicles. We got Jeeps. I got ATVs up there. They're all coming up, checking things out. And fortunately, they choose not to pursue going up the road. But geez, do I want to live like that? Where's my right to quiet enjoyment, you know? So as you craft this policy, we do have statutes, they drive the train. I don't want to be a meanie and see, you can't have people up there. People are welcome. However, I just don't want to see vehicles. I don't want to have my life damaged. I don't want to have my property damaged. And I want to be able to pass what I own off to the next generation, which they do want, so that they can have their quiet enjoyment. It's been like this for an awful long time. We've had no problems. People come and ask directions, that's fine. I'm not necessarily sure that I want to have a whole lot of advertisement that says, hey, there's something cool up there, you go see. Okay? I'm not even really sure why we need this, other than it may be a good idea to have a policy. As we go through this is only a part of what's on my mind, and I'm not sure how well I'm speaking here, or if I'm even making sense. I hope we get another cut at this. There's plenty more to be said. And we'll see how it goes.
So Derek, I appreciate your, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
but
no, that's fine. Good, shut me down.
If you,
'Cause
if you can put it, if you can put it in writing, that would help us out, because then we can read what you're thinking about. I don't want to burden you with it, because you're more than welcome to come and let us know what's on your mind, but having it in writing would be very helpful, at least in my opinion.
I do understand that. Part of my problem is a class 4 road. I've had so long to think about this, and it depends on which day you talk to me about it to know what my opinion is gonna be. Class 4 roads are wonderful. They allow people to get around the state. There's a significant value to be had there. Class 4 roads can also be an extreme detriment. So if I wanted to keep my property and everything as is, yeah, I'm gonna wanna have some control over it. But in the same breath, if I'm suddenly needing nursing home care, and the only way I'm gonna get it is to sell my property and have it developed, I need that part of that class 4 road as well. There's a value on both sides of their coin. So it's very hard to pin it down. But I think it's best expressed as in maintaining the current quality of life that I have, which is simply people are welcome in, paused, roots, and whatever else I said there.
Derek, I would encourage,
yeah.
I would encourage you to come to our CCC meeting, and you might be pleasantly surprised about the general attitude and thoughts that we have as a group and what we're trying to put into a document here to help along with some of the ideas that we have. It seems like you're making a lot of assumptions in what you've talked about, especially when it comes to motorized vehicles. And discussions happen about everything that we were talking about, but there's a lot of disagreement about exactly usage and motorized vehicles or not motorized. So there's a lot of talk and input that we're gathering for this document. And a lot of it is based just on state statute. But I think you would be surprised as far as the intentions of a lot of what's going on here and stuff.
Okay. I truly understand the desire for recreation opportunities in Chester, although we have a lot. Do we need more? But whatever, that's whatever. What I had originally thought I might see here would be a map of the town, the roads laid out on it, or, obviously displayed on it. And that there would be an inventory of those roads, and then potentially possible uses of those roads. Some roads may be very suitable to being Jeep trails. I don't know.
And all that was presented and put out in earlier packets of the state statute that the state requirement that the town has to do, declaring where all those class 4 roads are. And all that information out there. There was like 16 or 18 miles of class 4 roads. They were broken down by where they are, locations, lengths, and all that stuff. And part of the discussions we've had is which ones make sense to develop, which ones make sense to just ignore for now because what they are or what they entail to do it. So those discussions all have been happening in the background and stuff to get to this document too. So
I don't.
it just didn't come out of
That's good.
nowhere and we're gonna,
That's good to hear. I don't know that we should tar all of our class 4 roads with the same brush when it comes to our policy in town. Truly, you don't have an awful lot of choice because statute is statute and that's the way it is. Until that changes, you got it. However,
but there is a lot of leeway in this document that gives the select board permission to either limit use by motorized vehicles or open it or limit use in other ways and stuff. So each road, we do have the authority as a board to do a lot of the things that you're talking
The
about.
way I see this, it lays the foundation to have those discussions about what's appropriate for a given class 4 road. Right now, we have nothing
Right.
behind us except state statute. Right, so that to me was the impetus of this whole body of work, was to be able to make those decisions, have those discussions, and act appropriately.
So I
yeah.
don't mean to cut conversation
Yeah.
short. I think it's a great conversation. We will be having more
That's-
discussion about this, not to cut you off. But
It's
we
getting
have,
late.
we have a few other things.
I'm trying to keep.
Yeah,
track.
and again, Derek, I really appreciate you coming forward
Yeah.
and we're looking forward to hearing from you again. And again, I don't mean to cut you off. If you have something that you just need to unload right now, go ahead. Otherwise,
No,
we'll
thank you for your attention.
see you. around.
First Tuesday of every month, 5 o'clock.
Yeah, can
at
you
the
email
library.
me? Cause I have a lousy. You got me.
Yeah, I'll put it on.
Okay, well, thank you for your attention and, hopefully my concerns come to have some plans.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
That's what we're
Thank you.
looking for is input.
Yep.
You just gave it to us.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments? All right, next on the agenda is withdrawal of Cypress mineral funds from the public funds. So Julie, you want to help us out with this?
Sure. So there has been discussion over the years about the Cypress Minerals Funds. To give a little backstory, back in 1997, Select Board at that time, sold some mineral rights to property that it had. Those mineral rights were sold. That money was then put into the public funds. That was at the time the Select Board's only avenue to invest the funds. There was discussion in minutes about not wanting those funds to just get spent or absorbed. They wanted to kind of put it away for further use and discussion. So over time, those funds have grown. Again, they are held by the trustees, but they're not managed by the trustees because they're not the trustees' funds. So the conversation has been had now that the town has its own investment funds through the development funds. We have our own mechanism of investing. And the trustees are having conversations about putting the public funds to work in different ways. It may be the appropriate time, and the board has had a lot of discussions about different potential uses of those funds over the years. Maybe the time to pull those out, invest with the town's funds, so they're not mixed in with the trust, with the public funds. There's been a few conversations. I mean, we talked last meeting about, you know, instead of going outside for short-term borrowing, maybe we go back to doing some internal short-term borrowing. This may be a way that some of those funds could be used as seed money for our own internal borrowing. If you chose, I mean, it may be a way to, we've been talking about transitioning as we develop the capital plan, about transitioning from, you know, the current debt that we have, getting out from under that debt, moving more towards a pay-as-you-go for items 5 years or less. You know, we've had those conversations. This may be a way to pay down some of that debt without hitting the taxpayers. There's a lot of different potentials for it. The question before you, and does not need to be made tonight by any means, is it time to pull those funds out of the public funds and invest in our own, I would say put it in with the development funds in just, we'll just subcategorize it under the development funds, but have it within our own investments. Again, then a strategy or a plan be used for using those funds or not, or maybe letting them sit there and continue to grow within our own funds.
So would this allow us to manage it to grow the fund more than what the trustees of public funds are doing, and they're not touching this at all?
They're not touching this at all. What's happening with, that's not true. What's happening with this is the interest earned is paid to the general fund every year.
And what does that amount to?
It's like $1,500-1,600.
It's like a percentage, usually,
It-
whatever their yearly percentages, what, 8-10% or something.
It's-
They're usually pretty good.
It's usually $1,500 to $1,600. It's somewhere around there. It's not a whole lot more than that. Of course, obviously, depending on When interested, yes.
Certain years are better than others.
Correct.
So if we put this in the economic development fund, then
You can do the same thing.
we could or get better return on it, or it would be, we could use it anyway. It's not like we're gonna tie it up in a CD or
Correct.
something like that.
Correct.
See, I am more in favor of, we used to have a equipment fund that got spent out, and I think I really, when I read through the chapter development funds, I see really nice controls that I read.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, you use it as a mechanism to borrow against, it doesn't work that well because there's big limits in it. So if you took the mineral funds out and put it into an equipment fund, and then you use that as a loan, again, so we talked about the police crew that they wanted 6% interest. You know, certainly the equipment fund could lend the money to the capital fund and for 3%. That's what I see. The development funds, somebody did a really good job on that. That's probably Bob Flint. I see his finger in here everywhere. But I wouldn't put the money in there because there's limits on what you can use it for.
And what it would be though, Peter, is invested together.
It could be
It-
invested
right,
together.
it
but
just has
two
a
separate
policy,
funds.
correct.
There you go. I'm in.
So whatever we do with it, those funds, separate them out, put them in where we could access them more. For loaning or being a bank or whatever, I would just try to make sure that we don't deplete that fund.
Absolutely. You
We
need to
maybe-
have a policy around the
yeah,
use of
yeah.
those funds.
Yeah.
It's not just making them available to offset operating
Yeah.
budget. No.
So maybe we don't get the full 10% that when it was grouped together with $1 million fund where they had a great year, maybe you make a little less. But you definitely don't want to see that fund going down.
Well, see, I think you really want to be careful and separate it, so it's like the select board administrates the money come out, because what happened last time with the equipment fund was it just sort of bled away.
Yeah.
And the thing is we want to have control, so we really need the money. We have to have a good case to use it. It's us that release the money for the.
And just establish a policy around it. We
Yeah.
need to have a policy
Yeah,
around it,
Right.
around how that works.
I mean, the development funds, I read through that, I really liked it, but on the other hand, you're limited to how much you can do on each thing, and it's not enough money to be able to do that. So it kind of needs to stand alone on its own policy.
Ariana, you got a comment?
I was gonna say, Julie, thank you for identifying this as something that should be looking at right now. And I generally feel like, yes, it needs to be pulled out of those funds, and then we need to figure out how it can grow and then be used. Again, I'm a huge fan of not continuing to borrow at high rates, so I love the idea of an equipment fund or some other fund that allows us to anticipate expenditures that don't come out of the general fund, but are part of managing the municipality. So I'm all for it. Agreed, we need to create a policy around it, but the decision to extract it, yes.
I'm in.
What's it, 220, somewhere around there?
Yeah.
2350.
And I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said, cautious about not depleting it. As long as we can set it up so it replenishes.
Correct.
And gains a little bit.
And
Correct.
Well, I mean,
ideally,
3%,
again,
5%.
You're borrowing against yourselves and paying it back at a
Instead of
reasonable
giving it to
interest
the
rate.
bank,
Correct.
So,
It's no freebie.
So it should still keep on growing.
Correct.
yeah, the
not
development
as-
fund does a really good job of that,
Yes.
the way that's laid out, but there are limitations, like 15% of the fund is all you can spend on one particular. item.
On one project.
That's right, see, so, and it would be, you're gonna borrow money with the police cruiser right off the bat, that's
You're over that.
$70,000, you're over.
Right, and your conversation the last time and previous conversations has been along the lines of being able to have access to borrow. So it's not development.
Right.
It's not, so it doesn't belong in the development policy.
There's a word that sometimes. It's not revolving, but there's a word that we used when we talked about the tree grant, where there's a certain amount of money and you borrow it and it always
Yeah,
gets
it's
paid
revolving.
back.
It's a revolving loan.
revolving.
It's a revolve, that's what the
So for us
CDF is.
Philosophically, to look at this as a revolving loan, so there's always that much, you borrow a little, it goes back in, or you
Correct.
have it to borrow.
Correct.
That was not that the development fund.
Yeah.
Still managed it anyway.
We do, and we're loaning.
So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Derek, you got a question, comment?
Yeah.
Come on up, yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about money, which is one of my,
Introduce
Derek
yourself again.
Pester. What?
Introduce yourself again.
I did. But would you like to hear it a third time?
Yes,
I'm Derek Sursa from Chester.
thank you.
So money is one of my favorite subjects and money mismanagement is right up there. When I first started on the select board, I don't know when, back in the dark ages sometimes. I watched a very large pool of money within water or sewer, I'm not really sure which, Bill, remind me. And it was a big chunk of change. And the decision was made to hold the rates low for the users. And I watched us blow the whole total of that fund to the tune of, 14,000, 15,000 one year, a little bit more, all in this effort to keep things low. And then suddenly we looked up and hey, there's no more money and people were saying, where did it all go? More recently, I have noticed that you guys do a lot of fund transfers. I'm not sure what currently is occurring because I haven't really been watching much. Fund transfers are equally as dangerous. You borrow the funds, keeping it within your house, therefore not paying interest. And it's very easy to borrow the funds from the other enterprise funds, but not pay them back. So in other words, you run your fund balance down to zero in all these external funds. And everything works out because it's in the books. You show an owed to, an owed from, everything balances. However, the actual cash doesn't exist because it's been spent. It's just owed. And the only way you can put the money back into those funds is to borrow it or raise it through some other means. So your intents to take the money and to control it and to use it as a loaning type thing is a very good idea. However, if you don't have rock solid financial policy and the absolute commitment to return it back once you've used it, through whatever means, including the raising of taxes, which nobody wants to do, then you're doomed to failure. We do have a lot of money in public funds in general. And it just sort of sits there and you kind of wonder, gosh, shouldn't it be growing, using somewhere I can use this if for no other reason than save the cost of interest of borrowing. But it's very easy to take and not put back. That's my final word on that. And you're just going to have to stay all over it. And while this board may make that commitment, and Julie being town manager, I'm sure she's going to carry through on it. But eventually all this is going to change and somebody's going to come in here and say, ooh, look what I can do. Look what I can do. And town government and my past managers, not Julie, I can't speak for Julie. But it's always a hunt for money. It's always a hunt. How do you balance it? How do you shuffle it? And make everything look right. And there's sometimes so much shuffling that goes on. And I know you've talked about this, Arnie, that in the end, it's like, what happened? We have no way of knowing. Now, our bookkeeping right now is solid. When we got the bookkeeping straightened out, I think the records are fine and you can see everything. But it still requires a major commitment to actually put the money back.
That's where that policy is going to be such an important document. If we go in that direction, that it's clear, that it's enforceable, and it's open and transparent. And then the public is watching what's going on and our auditors watch what's going on.
Well, and when we did this in the past, we created a loan. We created a loan from one department to the fund. Because we borrowed.
Legal document.
In your time, we did some borrowing against the Economic Development Fund to purchase like the water truck. And we've done this in the past. This is not new. And so when we did, we actually created loan documents so that they are recorded in the books as loans and budgeted for repayment. So I would envision if you go this route, that exact same process, because you've got to have a loan on the books. You've got to show.
There is a
borrowing.
process
You've
to
gotta
make
do
this
that.
happen and make it happen more.
That's what
correctly.
we've done it in
You
the
just
past.
got to do it. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you, Derek.
Yep.
Anybody else? Mr. Lindsay? Come on up and introduce yourself for the second time.
Take my hat off.
You can leave your hat
I'm
on.
a non-Yankee
Start
fan.
singing, but nobody would
The
appreciate it.
comment was, I like your hat, nothing about wearing it.
I'm only kidding, have a lot of fun. I'm gonna go back to my comment before about the housing. And I really didn't explain housing as well as I should have. We just had some discussion about buying a piece of equipment. And I say to myself, well, yeah, that means that we could use the fund to buy a piece of equipment, we'll end up giving it back to the fund. Well, that could be, but what's in my mind is how do we pay for the town of Chester? We pay for the town of Chester through the Grand List, which is the reason I brought up using the funds we have as seed money to a housing project. Maybe whatever it be, I'd rather see senior housing, but that senior housing or other housing is going to produce tax revenue to the town of Chester. The equipment's going to wear out, we're going to do the same thing again. That's not going to add anything to the town of Chester's Grand List. And that's where I'm coming from. It's very difficult for the town to raise any funds other than raising taxes. And I'm trying to avoid raising taxes and use money to make money. And this is going to make money if we take these dollars as seed money, help the contract to put up the project. That money will come back in taxes on the housing. Hopefully it's connected to water and sewer, and by gosh, water and sewer people can use a little extra revenue. So what I'm trying to say is, when we're spending money, think about adding something to the Grand List. We're not gonna have Amazon come to Chester. Probably the people in Chester wouldn't want Amazon to come here. So we have to do little bits and bytes to get revenue increases to the town of Chester. To me, this is a good use of the money. I'm just asking you to think about it. Help the contract put up the building, then we can tax the buildings and put it back on. Then we could probably pay for some of that equipment. If we do it right, we've done it once before with a company coming here. We lent them the money from economic development to extend the sewer line. And guess who paid it back? We had the company pay back the expansion for the sewer line. That was a plus all the way around, and then we charged the company on the building they put up. I'm looking for revenue sources. You all go shopping, you all got a tax bill for the town, you're gonna get another one from the school. How can you cut that? A little bit. That's what I believe the board should be doing to help the citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Any other comments on this? All right, next is the new business, next agenda.
So what do you want me to do with that? Do you want to?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. And I would say, I mean, do you want to, maybe it's wise to develop a policy first. Before we extract the funds. I mean, there's no hurry. They're fine, right where they're at. So we could develop a policy, we could draft a policy around it. You could tinker with that and get that where you want it to be. And then once that's in place, extract the funds and. Okay.
And I do like Bill's idea about using it for seed money for the housing.
Okay.
At least to explore ways that we can grow the fund, not necessarily through direct interest, but investment or whatever, but you know, how do we use it to
Invest in the
do,
town.
do some of the projects that we'd like to do in the town that will bring in revenue by increasing the grant list. So some options. Yeah.
Well, but you have the CHIPS development money that you can do that now.
Right.
Expand that.
Yeah, but we are not using all that money now.
But you said earlier that there are limitations on how much of that money can be
There
used.
is per unit.
project.
Right, but if for some reason we wanted to put that into the housing fund, you know, we would only be limited to 15% of that money for the housing fund, or would it go for
this?
About 400,000 a year now. I mean, and I mean, that's a policy that's 7 or 8 years old. I mean, maybe you need to look at these policies side by side and start looking at all those funds at the same time
I like
to
that.
say, what does this look like?
But
Side by side.
the other question that I had was, is there a list of funds that are held by the town that we can look at to see Because I know that public funds is close to $1 million, of which $223,507 is from Cypress Mineral. But are there other funds out there that,
Other than the public fund,
yeah,
not that I'm aware of.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not that
So-
I don't have an intended.
right,
Yeah, most of the other funds have control of the public funds, but
Correct.
they have the control. We don't
right, right,
have The town, so.
okay,
Some of those public funds are already designated.
Correct. Cemeteries or, yeah.
right,
For funds and this.
Yep.
that stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have the direction? from
Yes.
The board?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'll come back with a
Excellent.
couple of draft policies.
Okay, new business or next agenda. Anybody have any new business?
I'd like to look at, when you're looking at sidewalks, I actually did go walk to high school down through. And there is a good path behind 3 but 2 houses. So why can't we just clean the brush out behind 2 houses and have a path behind?
We can talk to the high school.
Yeah, that's, I would like to see that, just, I mean, it's like,
Well,
we're
we
gonna
need,
build a sidewalk, we're gonna cut some brush out of there, and there's a path.
you gotta look at our easement too. If it's just for drainage and not
It's
passage,
just
then
drainage.
I don't know. I've gotta look.
Yeah.
We've gotta look at these.
It was the question when they were going to put the sidewalks up, because the other one was when I looked on the town tax map, it shows the high school owns that all the way on both sides. of the
Yeah.
river.
Yeah, yes, they do. So it may be just permission sometimes.
Yeah.
You can just take the mic back with you.
I'm Derek Urso, Chester.
Thank
I
you,
think
Derek.
that path behind the Mountain View is a water main under there or something.
Yeah.
That's what that's all about, sewer, okay. I looked at those and I've watched, and good on you guys for looking all that. I would be concerned about the safety aspects of a path that is out of street lighting and behind houses where you can't see it. I don't know who uses the path, but I'd hate to see something go wrong in the woods somewhere. Not a good idea.
It's when you walk the path, because I walked from the high school down, there's a lot of people who walk through a lot of different lines all the time. The path is
Pretty
well-
busy back
well-
there.
Yeah.
It's pretty
well
busy,
trod.
but a lot of side stops.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I don't know if this comes under new business or not, but I forwarded you an email, if you saw it, Julie, about that, Housing Solutions Breakfast on the 24th.
Of
In
September.
West Lebanon.
Yes, Preston and I are going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
You already
Yeah.
are?
Yeah.
By okay, you probably already know about this.
Preston and I are going. That was brought up when Preston and I went to it was a couple weeks ago. Look, the Housing Commission is a member of Let's Build Homes, which is an initiative that Mira Weinberger started, and so Miro had reached out to me. We became acquainted when we were sat on the VLCT board of directors together, so we got chummy there. So he had reached out. They were doing this thing in Quechee, so we went, and so he invited us. Last year, actually, Preston spoke at that forum because I was gone. So Preston spoke at that forum. This year, we're not speaking, but we are attending because they're going to have some developers there.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, and there's gonna
Make
have some
connections.
developers that Miro's gonna introduce me to, so.
Okay,
we're-
just wanted
we're
to make
headed
sure it was
that
on
way.
your radar.
Yep, yep, it is. I had 2 things from the business.
Yes, go ahead.
I was contacted by the River Conservancy, as you all, well, some, probably everybody knows, there's an easement, a conservancy easement about Rainbow Rock. They have built a, kiosk that this is what will be on it. And, that will go, right at the entrance to the path that goes down to Rainbow Rock. I'm inclined to tell them yes, unless anybody is saying, oh my word, please don't put a kiosk that talks about Rainbow Rock. I can't imagine why anybody would, but you never know. This was part of when they came to you years ago, and talked about this. They had talked about a kiosk being developed at some point that discussed Rainbow Rock, what was there, the little path, how to get down. So, but again, before I just say to them, yes, go ahead and put it up.
What's the pleasure of the board? You guys all good?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
And again, like I said, it was part of the initial discussion.
And there used to be a
When we
little
get it.
sign there, but I think it disappears.
This is not some grand, like
No.
massive thing. It's a small sign that
It just clarifies when you stop there, if you're new and say, oh, it is public.
That's
Correct.
what it is.
I
Correct.
can go down there. I'm not gonna worry about somebody coming out and being all
Correct.
upset about it.
Correct.
because, you know, that's
And the
what purpose
habitat of
was.
what's down there and.
We'll take a look at the trail going down. I think that's been pretty good shape, but it's good, yeah.
Science.
You gotta get up here,
Yeah.
right?
You know,
Sorry.
Ken Walker. Okay, I went down to Rainbow Rock with my grandkids this past summer. I was very disappointed. The swimming hole is obliterated. It's gone.
The flood is,
Can we reverse that? It looks like all that gravel has been harvested.
we've asked if we can reestablish Rainbow Rock in New Orleans.
They're not gonna let us go in there and dig a giant hole, huh? That used to be gorgeous.
We asked, and we tried to see when we did river, we did gravel extraction to see if we could just, maybe we just kind of here. But, it wasn't close enough to what we were doing to kind of make it, reappear.
Pretty close.
It was close, but yeah, we've asked. I know. There's a few of those locations.
What's the flow, so.
Ask
Maybe
for
the next- maybe the
forgiveness.
next flood will do something, I don't know.
so your other point?
My other thing is, you have a second meeting, the second Wednesday of October, the third Wednesday of October, obviously it's October 15th. I will be gone, I will be in South America visiting Nika. You guys are welcome to, meet without me. Or if you want me there, then I am asking if we can move the date.
You're going to Peru for one day?
Right?
No.
I was,
Meet on the 14th or 16th.
Oh,
Or
that
the
was dumb.
17th.
So I guess the 14th, that was, I don't know what I was thinking.
so the
That was
16th or
dumb.
17th would work.
But no, those would not work.
None of those
I fly out, and I don't know why I did that. I clearly wasn't thinking. I fly out, we fly out Wednesday, the 15th. We'll be back on the 21st. So I can resend you some dates. How about if I just resend you some dates? Because clearly I screwed that up. Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
weirdly, we have 5 Wednesdays in October,
Right,
so
so,
maybe we can just pick a bit.
Yeah.
Is that why you picked that time to go?
no, I was actually gonna fly on the 16th, but then the flights were $400 a piece cheaper to fly on the 15th. So
Oh, wow.
that was a big difference.
Send us some of the dates, Julie, the
Okay.
guys, we really do have 5 Wednesdays in October, it would be pretty easy this week.
Okay, we'll do that. I will. Okay, I'll send an email of that.
Is it 22nd to 4th?
It's the
It
fourth
is the
Wednesday.
4th Wednesday.
Yeah, I can't make that.
What about the 5th?
I can probably make that one.
Well, but then our next meeting will be.
Exactly. So I'll send some dates.
Well, also, let's look and see when we get to the next meeting, how busy we might be, let's cancel it. Could we go to
Or
the
maybe we
29th?
can even survive without you for one.
You can absolutely survive without me for one meeting.
You're gonna be on speed dial?
Okay. I will be flying.
I hate to say, we can't survive without Susan.
Susan can be there, but you don't necessarily need me there. So I'll throw out some dates and.
All right, next agenda, looks like, we're establishing an economic development committee. As having more discussion about the flag policy, is that?
That you, at a meeting several months ago, you had said to move the flag policy discussion to the second meeting in September. So that will be your next meeting, and Preston and I, are working on, the thoughts of establishing an actual economic development. For Chester, that is a subdivision of the town, much like the Housing Commission. We have some.
Commission, not a committee.
It would be, we're formulating all of that still, but something that would be official, from the town. There's a lot of work that would be great to do, that I certainly don't have time for. And it would be great to have, we have a lot of people in this town that, that have skill sets in economic development, from marketing all the way to, there's a lot out there. So, it would be a great, committee commission to have. So Preston and I are working on a draft bylaw. Your first pass will be, first view of it would be September.
Anything else for next agenda? I will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Ariana's made the motion, second.
Second.
All night.
Wow.
We're both being polite and then when somebody goes to say something.
So Tamarni are both, second.
Barney.
Any discussion? Anybody opposed? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending.
My eyes.